Hey guys! How are you doing? That's an offensive stereotype, Jacob. You should be ashamed of yourself. This is a quick video that I've been inspired to make by a recent news item that I saw on the news recently. It was an item about a study that had been done to investigate the usage of the term British and how people do or do not apply it to themselves. It found that the people least likely to use the term British are older white people who are much more likely to identify as either English, Scottish or Welsh. I'm not going to talk about Northern Ireland here because the question of whether Northern Ireland is British or not is a whole other issue that I'm just not going to get into. But like I said, white people who are old are much more likely to identify as either English, Welsh or Scottish than British. The group most likely to identify as British are ethnic minorities in Britain, most of all Asian people born in Britain, who feel as though the terms English, Welsh and Scottish tend to refer more to white people living in Britain. Having said that, I did a little bit of further research on my own and found that people who are not white, who are born in Britain, if they are born in Scotland or Wales, more so in Scotland, are more likely to identify as Scottish or Welsh than people who are not white who were born in England are to identify as English. I hope I've worded that correctly, I think I did. Basically, ethnic minorities born in Scotland or Wales are more likely to identify as Scottish or Welsh than ethnic minorities in England are to identify as English. Which suggests to me two things. Number one, it might just be reflective of the fact that England has such a degree of dominance within Britain. For instance, England has a population literally 10 times as large as Scotland and has much greater racial diversity that might lead people who are ethnic minorities in Britain but who are born and raised in Scotland or Wales, because they might be the only one ethnic minority they know, feel that they have nothing else to identify with and are more likely to identify as Scottish or Welsh. Whereas ethnic minorities born in England might have more of an ethnic community around them that might, I don't know what the right politically correct term is, impede their either ability or desire to blend in more with the English identity, the white English identity. Number two, it also might suggest that there might be something about the Welsh and Scottish identity that exists in opposition to England, because England has such dominance in Britain, that to some degree a lot of people identify as Scottish or as Welsh in opposition to being English. Which is understandable from a certain perspective. A bit petty from my admittedly biased English perspective, but that's just me speculating. What I want to also point out is that with respect to how I feel as a white person born in England and therefore in Britain, is that I feel simultaneously English and British. They're two identities that exist side to side. I suppose you could sort of understand English as being a subset of British, but even then, I just consider English to be a bit more specific. If someone asks me, where are you from? I can see myself answering I'm from Britain or I'm from the UK. I'd probably be more likely to say that I'm from England because it is a bit more specific. But for instance, if we're having a discussion that affects Britain as a whole, I will happily identify as British. If someone from another country refers to me as British, I won't correct them. I personally, as a young white person living in England and therefore also Britain, do not feel a need to disassociate myself from the term British. I know certain people in my family who disagree with me on that. That's just my opinion and my sort of experience being English and British at the same time. But what do you think? Are you like me? Are you a white English/British person and do you identify as such? Maybe you're more mixed white British. Maybe you're part English, part Scottish, part Welsh, part Scottish, part English, blah, 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 blah. You get the point. Maybe you were raised in all three countries or a mixture of two, or maybe you were raised in one particular country and therefore you more readily identify with that country. Maybe you're an ethnic minority and you identify as British or you identify as English or whatever. It'd be interesting to hear from ethnic minorities that aren't as common as, for instance, black British people and Asian British people. I don't know, fucking Italian British people, Polynesian British people, fucking, I don't know, Aboriginal Australian British people. But let me know what you think, because this is something I find quite interesting, and I fear it may have something to do with my own insecurities as an English person, because I recently went on holiday to Scotland. It was great, by the way, loved it. But I did constantly feel myself checking myself and thinking, oh, these Scottish people are going to hate me when they're going to hear my accent and be like, arr, we're pirates. Where they're going to be like, oh, these fucking English coming up here, looking at our mountains, interfering with our ways. And the rational part of me would be like, oh my god, Scottish people are not like that, you know? Apart from that one Scottish guy in that Scottish pub who was a complete dickhead, and I hope he gets fucking kilt-aids. But let me know what you think. I'm rambling now, as I am wont to do. Goodbye. Let me know what you think. I end videos badly!